is to get started. So
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yes.
How to networking have a specific goal in mind?
Okay.
Making networking tailored around that goal.
Okay, good stuff. Yes.
And also when sending emails, if you don't know that person already.
Awesome. Yeah. Great. Yes.
When you know two people who should connect professionally, what's the best way to connect them?
Okay, good stuff. That's a great topic. Anybody else have something that they came here to learn today? So I can be sure to touch on it. Yes.
What that dog's name is?
It's actually JW, initials named after a very dear friend of mine. His initials are JW. That's not my dog. How about you, Isaiah? Anything in networking in specific that you were hoping to learn today?
Just very general stuff. So
Okay, good stuff. What time is it?
It is 12. The
12?
yeah, Google Hangouts has started.
It started.
Initiated.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, well, I guess we should go ahead and start, right? 2 ways. All right, let's go ahead and start. So, my name is Shakirra. I'm the coordinator here. You might oftentimes see me sitting back there, banging away at my keyboard, trying to make this place run. I also coach here. Sometimes my coaching hours are a little bit limited because I'm trying to make this place run. And today I'm going to talk to you about networking. The reason why I think I can talk to you a little bit about networking is because when I first fell in love with entrepreneurship and startups, about a year and a half after I graduated from Rollins, where I majored in psychology and philosophy, thought I wanted to be an academic. Long story short, I decided I didn't. I had no experience in startups or entrepreneurship. I just knew that I loved this community and that I wanted to be a part of it. And through identifying which people I thought could help me and befriending them, I was able to get pretty far. So about 5 months after I first accidentally went to a startup meetup and really liked it, Pam, the director of this place, you guys have probably seen her around, approached me at an event. I had no idea who she was and said, "Can I have your business card? I might have a job for you." And here I am sitting in front of you guys. I get to work in this awesome place, surrounded by great ideas every day, working with amazing coworkers. So I'm really living, breathing proof that who you know can get you really far, and if you guys can master this, you can change your life in 1 year. My life is totally different than it was a year ago. Well, when I first started this, it was a complete 180. I hated my job, I wasn't going anywhere, and just through really understanding that by giving to people, befriending them, being empathetic with them, they could help me open up doors. So, I also kind of like this stuff, so I research and read a lot about it, how to navigate conversations, how to befriend people, how to be charming. So I picked up a few things here and there from like a more research academic perspective that I think I can impart to you guys, but I am no means an expert. So this is a dialogue. If you guys have any great tips, feel free to chime in anytime. So I actually want to get started with a story. So after I graduated from Rollins, I had a job as a secretary and I was pretty miserable. So I would be making coffee for my middle-aged bosses, kind of staring at my double honors degree, hanging on the wall, being like, oh my God, how did I get here? And I decided, okay, this is pretty miserable. I need to get a better job. So I thought to myself, let me think of my 3 favorite companies in Orlando and just try to hustle and get a job at one of them. So the first one that I started out trying to hustle was a digital ad agency downtown. So I knew that I couldn't just click the careers button on their site and send my resume to HR because I didn't have the right experience. I knew they would never call me back. So instead, what I did is I thought to myself, who is the person who would make this decision? it's probably the CEO of the company because it was a relatively small company. And then I thought to myself, how can I convince him that investing in me as an employee is a good idea? Well, I'd have to get in front of his face to do that. My resume wasn't going to do it for me. So I searched online for his email address. So I kept trying like his first letter of his first name and his last name and the company's name. And I just kept trying and trying and trying. It took me like 45 minutes. And I finally found it on the really sketch 401k website. Because I guess companies have to disclose part of their 401k information. So I found his email address. But I couldn't just send an email saying, hey, I think you should hire me, here's my resume. It's too busy. I'll probably get hit up by people wanting to get jobs there all the time. So I started to really research him and figure out what he was into. And I came upon his Flickr profile. And on his Flickr profile, there was a picture of a box. And the caption underneath the picture said, moving day, my life in one box. So I thought to myself, man, whatever's in this box is pretty important to him if he called it his life in one box. And it was a picture of a lot of books, but the picture was kind of blurry, so I couldn't make out all the titles of all the books. But I tried my best, and I went on Amazon and read the summaries of the books that were in that box, because I figured if he's calling this his life in one box, whatever concepts, ideas are in this box are probably really important to him. So I read the summaries, I got a good idea for the stuff that was important to him. And then I wrote this email to him saying, you know, hey, this is who I am, I really want to work for your company, this is why. And I intertwined the ideas from into the email. And at the end of the email, I said, hey, listen, why don't you come and let me work for you for free for 3 days?
Yeah.
That way, you can evaluate my work ethic and attitude firsthand. And if you don't want to hire me at the end of the day, you get 3 free days of work out of me. And I can rest easy knowing that I did everything I could to work at my favorite company in Orlando. It's a win-win situation. So I hit the send button and I thought to myself, wow, that was really crazy. You know, sometimes when you do something really crazy that you think just might work, but then you also think, wow, that was really insane. I just was on this guy's Flickr profile and reading summaries of his favorite books. Okay, so 1 day goes by and I'm starting to feel pretty weird about it. 2 days go by and I'm starting to feel weirder about it. And finally he writes me back and he says, hey, this is one of the best emails I've ever got. Why don't you come visit me in my office a week and a half from now? So fast forward a week and a half from that day, I'm sitting with him and his COO in his office, highfalutin office in the middle of downtown, overlooking the Orlando skyline. They gave me a tour of their totally decked out office with pool tables and beer kegs and the rest of it. And at the end of that meeting, they said, okay, we'll give you an offer, expect it in your email on Monday. So I didn't have the experience, I didn't have the qualifications. It was a couple of years ago, so the economy was in the pits and everybody was trying to look for a job. But I was able to get face-to-face in front of him and his COO so that they could make a decision about me. And it's not because of who I am, it's because of what I did, and you guys can do it too. So the lessons here are that information overload is an epidemic. I knew that guy was inundated with emails. There were people left and right trying to get a job at that company. So I thought to myself, what can I do to really stand out? And I knew I had to get to the heart of something that he really cared about. I had to say something that was relevant to him. I couldn't just be another humdrum email in his inbox saying like, hey sir, I was trying to get a meeting for these days. And you write back to the days that are good for you. I had to make an impact on him, and that's why he responded to me. And I was obviously trying to be empathetic and memorable by really talking about something that he cared about. Now, I wasn't insincere. I wrote about myself with integrity, but I did it from his perspective. I also obviously lurked and creeped online a lot. I'm talking about it really publicly with you guys, but I would highly encourage you to become really awesome at lurking online, and I would strongly encourage you to never talk to anybody about it. It's really creepy. Okay, so that brings me to my second topic, LinkedIn. How many of you all have LinkedIn profile? Okay, great job. I'm not going to ask the reverse question because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, please leave this presentation and go make one. And try not to make it super boring because there are a lot of super boring ones. I would go find one that you really like and take the concepts and ideas from that profile and use it in yours. Obviously, don't copy. LinkedIn is the token of how people communicate and make connections in the business world. I know it might be a little alien to you guys because you're students, but this is really just indispensable. You must have it in order to network, in order to build your professional, personal brand. Secondly, it's not a bad idea to invest in business cards. I have business cards through UCF because I work at the Launchpad, but I also have personal cards that I give out at networking events. So this is my card. Um, this was made back in the day when I didn't have a lot of cred. I wasn't working here yet. So I just put my name and the thing I had majored in and where I went to school. Obviously my name and my email and my phone number. And if you look at the back, I put this quotation on there. Entrepreneurship is the last refuge of the troublemaking individual. And I did this because I was trying to get people to kind of pause a little bit. And this actually started a lot of conversations. Another thing that I did is I very deliberately decided on having a darker card since there's so many white cards. Just so that, I mean, people who network get so many cards and they throw so many away. I throw so many away. So if you can just make somebody pause a little bit before they throw you in the trash can, it can be useful. I did pay a designer a little bit of money to make this, but if you go to moo.com, there are a ton of templates there for free. These cards are pretty nice. They're printed on pretty nice paper. They're not the cheapest cards around, but they're also not the most expensive, and they have great service, so I definitely recommend them. And I don't work for them. Full disclosure. Now, obviously, if you're, for example, in engineering or more conservative field, banking, a dark gray and flashing card is probably not going to do it for you. But if you're interested in a field where you have a little bit more creative freedom, I would definitely encourage you to try and peacock a little bit with your business cards. Peacock, the unusual, be memorable. Okay, so let's talk about the where and how of networking events. Networking can happen everywhere. I think we have this false notion that it has to happen in like this really, tight, uppity business setting, but it can happen in the grocery store, it can happen on the airplane. You never know who's sitting next to you. Influential, high-impact people still have to go to the grocery store, and they still have to fly. That's not to say everybody you ever meet can do something useful for you, but just be open about everybody and always think to yourself, every human being is a person that I can learn from. Let's talk specifically about networking events. So somebody in the back there, I can't remember now who it was asking, where do you network in Orlando? So I'll speak a little bit to this. If you're interested in tech startups, there's a meetup downtown called Orlando Tech Meetup. It's free. It's on the third Thursday of every month. That's the biggest one there is, and it's more general. It's good for non-tech people like myself. Now, if you're interested in any more specific topics in entrepreneurship startups, so agile development, Ruby on Rails coding, UX design, design in general, there are specific meetups for literally all of those things happening in Orlando every month. I would suggest that you check out meetup.com. There's also other things like Professional Black Engineering Society, if that applies to you. There's so many networking events. And if you can get plugged into one of those, you'll definitely meet people that you can learn from. Go to meetup.com, just search. There's a lot of great women in business networking events as well. Most of them are free, so go check them out. Now, at events where you've never been and you don't know many people or any people who are going, be early. One time I went to this networking event and I was like, oh, it's not going to get really pumping until 30 minutes after it really starts. So I show up 30 minutes late, everybody's already in conversations. I'm an extrovert and I still couldn't talk to anybody. So I would definitely recommend get there early. More people will be standing alone, so you'll be able to start conversations. Now, somebody in the back there was talking about how can I start a conversation? How do you even approach that? So I think this is interesting because you want to be sincere, but you also don't want to end up in a corner all alone, not talking to anybody. So sometimes I'll literally walk up to somebody who looks kind of lonely, introduce myself, and say, "How did you hear about this event?" That's a great way to get the conversation started. And then you can quickly move to, "Oh, what do you do? Let me tell you what I do. Let me tell you what I'm interested in," etc. And you want to have a really strong pitch about yourself. So I think as young people, we're kind of taught that we haven't really made it yet and we're not totally awesome yet. But I think those are lies. So having a really strong pitch about yourself. "Hey, my name is Joe. I'm a journalism student and I'm really passionate about X." Not, "Hey, my name is Joe. I'm just a student. Yeah, I'm trying to finish my degree." Having a really strong pitch about yourself and make you memorable. When somebody influential or anybody meets somebody new, they're looking for cues about how important you are, how effective you are, and they get those cues from the way you talk about yourself. So if you have a really weak pitch about yourself, they're going to think, "Man, this person doesn't even believe in themselves. Why would I believe in them?" And having a strong pitch is really just about practice. It's 2, 3 sentences. It's really brief, but it will help you a lot, especially when the conversation has like an awkward gap and you don't know what to say. You just take that right in there. Oh, one more thing. There are a lot of paid networking events out there. I've paid for a couple of them, but only because there were startups pitching there as well. I would be a little bit more cautious in leading networking events. I'm not saying that all of them are sketch, but some of them definitely are. And I definitely think you can network and grow your own network for free. Almost all the meetups that I mentioned before, Orlando Tech Meetup, Ruby on Rails Meetup, Design Meetup, those are all free. Because you got to think to yourself, if I'm paying to go to a networking event, and all those other people are also paying to go to a networking event, they don't know anybody, now we're just a bunch of people in a room who need to know people, and nobody really knows anybody. So I'm not saying that's always the case, I'm just saying there's a lot of free ways to do this effectively. Okay, so all right, you went to a networking event, you met a lot of awesome people, you got a lot of business cards. Now what do you do? Well, if you feel like you can help that person can help you, you can learn from them, they can learn from you, and you want to make a connection, which most of the time you do, you got to strike while the iron is hot. The brain cells in their head that are holding the information about the memory of who you are getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer over the next few days. So if you don't strike while the iron is hot, they'll forget about you. This is definitely a time-sensitive issue. Everything having to do with relationships, interpersonal communication has a shelf life, and it's usually 2 days. So it doesn't have to be complicated. Do a search of them online, their LinkedIn profiles, so you can kind of refamiliarize yourself with who they are, where they work, what they're working on. Then send them an email. Maybe it's as simple as, "Hey, really enjoyed talking about X at X networking event. Really interested in the projects that you have posted on LinkedIn. Hope we can keep in touch." And that's it. It can be that simple. The thing to remember is that people are both very busy and bored easily, which is a bad combination if you're trying to make a connection with someone. So be brief, don't talk a lot, and talk about things that are relevant to them. So the 3 things at the bottom there are really cardinal rules to remember. Long emails, asking too much, wanting to meet on your own time, don't do it. So when I'm writing an email to somebody and I'm trying to get something from them, some advice, a phone call, a meeting, a connection, I always start out with something that's relevant to that. So most of the time I'll go to their LinkedIn profile or just search them on social networks and see what they're into. And sometimes my opener has nothing to do with their business and nothing to do with what I'm asking. "Hey, saw that you love coffee. I know this great place in town. Here's the name." And then I go into what I'm doing. Obviously, you have to be sincere. It has to make sense. It can't be super random. But I try to make things relevant to them. And then when I'm making an ask of someone, I want to meet with you, I always try to think about what is one thing I can do for this person? Because I'm asking something from them. Maybe it's an article that you can send them about something that they're having trouble with. Maybe they're having trouble managing their time at work. Can you send them an article about how to deal with interruptions at work? I mean, there's little ways and also big ways to create value for someone. If somebody has really gone out of their way for me, got me a meeting, given me advice, sometimes I'll write them a thank you card and give them a gift card if they really did me a big favor. But I'm always thinking about what does that person care about? What do they have going on in their life? What are their projects professionally? What are their concerns personally? And what's one thing I can do to create value for them so they don't see me as another drain on their time and energy. They see me as a good investment of their time and energy. Okay, so this is a word about confidence. So you know sometimes when you feel a little insecure and you don't quite know what you're doing and you want to do this number and get really small so that nobody notices you, what you're subconsciously saying to people is, I'm not taking up a lot of space because I'm not worth a lot of space. So it's actually a great power move to take up a lot of space. You can drape your arm over a chair, stand up really tall, stand like a gorilla. If you look at the most powerful animals in the animal kingdom, they all take up a lot of space because it's a power move. So doing that will really enable you to put your best foot forward. Handshake, I'm guilty of having a really awkward wet noodle handshake. You don't want to do that. You don't have to crush the other person's hand. Definitely practice your handshake a little bit. I know it's a little weird, but grab a friend who you really trust and say, like, let's work this out before we graduate so that we can have a shot at having a good life. Watch the words you choose. So if you look at the sentence below there, we're all guilty of this because I believe that our culture has conditioned us to feel like we're not worth much. But you guys are already awesome. You're not getting ready to be awesome. You're already awesome. So don't say something like this. I would love to get a meeting with you, but I'm just a student and I've got a couple of years left. No. I would love to get a meeting with you, and I'm a student interested in and passionate about teaching. Do you see how that wording is different? And I want to kind of talk to you guys a little bit about the difference between, you can hear me? The difference between, can you guys hear me now? Does that work? Are you guys alive? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, so the difference between using the word and using the word but. So do you see how I use it in this sentence? When you use the word but, hey, I would love to go out with you tonight, but you're signaling something that something negative is coming. You're making the last end of that sentence kind of go down like a ground. When you really want it to go up like a crown case, even if you're breaking something bad news. So if you can master this, people will walk away from any conversation with you feeling like, man, that went really well, even if you told them something was bad news. So not, but I'm just a student, and I'm a student. Also, I'm trying really hard in my life never to interrupt anybody. When you interrupt somebody, they feel like what you have to say is more important than what you think they have to say. It's just not good. In their eyes, their perception of you automatically drops when you interrupt someone. Like one of the primary rules is good conversation. It's hard. Sometimes somebody goes on and on and on, and you have something really good to say. But just try to wait it out. So these are some tips for tending your garden. Part of the way that I've got to be friends with people that really helped open doors for me is I stopped sending thank you emails and I got some really good stationery and I started writing thank you cards. So this is the way I build my relationships, the relationships that directly help me get this job so that I can be sitting in front of you guys today. So people never get handwritten cards anymore, and they certainly hardly ever get handwritten thank you cards. So if you can take the time to do that, it really stands out and helps you be memorable and extraordinary. Also, try your best to keep a 75-25 ratio. What that means is the other person is talking 75% of the time, and you're talking 25% of the time. Also really hard to do, but this is kind of one of the basic rules of human psychology. The more you let someone talk about themselves and their life and their projects, the more they will like you. Everybody wants a chance to talk about themselves. So sometimes it's really hard because you've got a lot of good stuff to say, but the key is to be interested, not be interesting. I think we're all compelled to want to prove to people how smart we are, how effective we are, how much of a good investment of their time and energy we would be. But the key is to be interested in what they're doing, interested in who they are, interested in what they've got to offer, instead of being interesting. That's how people really start to see you as friends, see you as somebody that they want to help. Also, beware of big talkers and name droppers. This is something I learned pretty quickly as I got into this community and started networking a lot. The people who talk really big, drop heavy names, talk about all these great, amazing projects they're working on, make it seem like it's something you can't miss out on, are oftentimes people who have almost nothing important going on. And I learned that the hard way. If you think about it logically, it makes sense. If I have a lot of really amazing things happening in my life, big projects, I don't have to name drop or talk real big because I don't need other people's emotional validation to do it. So oftentimes, people who are a little bit more humble, oh yeah, I have a couple of projects going on that are doing really amazingly great things. People who have really impressive things going on usually don't need to impress other people. Also, tend your garden. So as you start to network, you'll build a base of people who you can help and who you can get help from. And you don't want to let these contacts kind of fall by the wayside. Like I said, everything having to do with human relationships and human communication has a shelf life. So you want to keep that relationship fresh. And that could be as simple as sending an email every couple of months that says, hey, just want to check up on you, saw this cool thing that you posted a picture of on Facebook, how are things, how's your family, how's business. It doesn't have to be about your business projects, it doesn't have to be about your jobs. At the end of the day, these are friendships, in my eyes. So you want to tend your garden just like you would a plant where you have to water it, or else it will die and shrivel up. Okay, so I'm gonna end with another story. So after I graduated from Rollins, I couldn't find a job. It was 2011, and the economy was really bad. I don't know if any of you guys felt that, but I did. So I saw this job actually here at UCF for a position that incorporated two of my passions, psychology and philosophy. So it was the perfect job for me. It paid $40K a year, which was mind-blowing to me at that time. So I was like, all right, I have to get this job. So there was an email address and a phone number listed on that job posting. And I kept calling and leaving voicemails. I kept emailing, no response. And finally, I was like, man, this person's not responding to me. I have no idea which professor this job is for. It was in a lab, but I had no idea which lab it was for. So I called the HR department. This girl picked up, and I'm like, hey, I'm calling about this job posting. Could you tell me which lab it's for? And she did. She just told me. And I was like, oh, okay, can you tell me which professor's in charge of this job? And then she just told me again. And I was like, all right, now I have something. And then I remembered that my buddy worked at a lab at UCF. So I called him up and I'm like, hey, do you know this lab? Do you know this professor? I'm trying to get a job here. But I can't get a response. And he's like, yeah, he's not so good on email. And I was like, hey, can you write me a recommendation letter for this job since you work in a lab? And he's like, yeah, definitely. And I was like, all right, I'll take you out for dinner as a token of my appreciation. So I took him out to dinner because remember, you're always trying to give back and convince people that you are a good investment, not a drain of their time and energy. So I take him out to dinner. He's happy, free food. But that gives me the opportunity to pick his brain about what it's like to work in the lab at UCF. Awesome, right? Okay, that's all well and good. I'm still left with the problem that this professor's not returning any of my calls or emails. So I was like, all right, how can I get in touch with this guy? You know what? Maybe I should show up outside one of his classrooms. So I look up his class schedule, which strangers can do on the UCF system. You guys might want to do that. So I found his class schedules to show up outside one of his classrooms, right? And I'm nervous. This is not, I'm talking about it like it's no big deal, but this is something that's a little bit crazy to do. So I catch him right as he's going into his class, and I was like, hey, can I sit in on your class? I'm really interested in this topic. And he was like, no, you can't. It's not allowed. And And I was like, okay, can I get 5 minutes of your time after your class? And he's like, maybe. So he goes, teaches the class. I'm sitting outside for an hour and a half, just like sitting there and getting more nervous. So he comes outside of class, finally, and I was like, hey, I'm interested in the job you posted. Can we talk for 5 minutes? He's like, well, I'm on my way to a class. And I was like, that's all right, I'll walk with you. He's like, okay. So I walked with him, and in that 5 minutes, I gave him the very best pitch I could about why I was the best person for that job. So he started to really soften up and warm up to me and said, hey, listen, this job is not for you. There are PhD candidates applying for this job. But why don't you send me your resume? I'll help you edit it, and I'll send it out to all my colleagues that have labs in Orlando. And I was like, all right. So I did that, and he helped me edit it. I got 2 interviews from the dozens of people that he sent my resume out to, which was awesome. He's still a great friend to me and checks in every once in a while. And he was really wary of me in the beginning, just like he would be of anybody who has found out where your classes are and showed up outside of them. But at the end of the day, my tenacity in trying to get his attention really spoke volumes to him, because hardly anybody does that anymore. So if you do that, it says a lot about your persistence and motivation. And he probably thought to himself, if this girl could track me down this hard, she could probably work a job this hard. That's kind of the calculation that people are doing in their head. So that was a cool thing that happened to me. And the lessons are that everywhere I was turning for more information about this job, sending this contact that was on the job emails, leaving them voicemails, calling them over and over, I couldn't get the information I needed. But just by picking up the phone and being a little bit resourceful, I was able to get some stuff done. And then I also, with my buddy, I asked him for something. I asked him for a recommendation, which he would have gladly done whether or not I bought him dinner. But I took him out to dinner to kind of give back to him. So whenever I'm thinking about networking, I'm thinking about leveraging connections to open up opportunities for myself, I'm also thinking about the other person. Because I truly believe that when you help people, they're much more willing to help you. Also, I was obviously nervous to go up to this guy. It was scary, but I didn't act like I was nervous. So a lot of this stuff is really scary, and it has the potential to be super awkward, but you truly have to take it until you make it. And if you embody the principles in this life, you will eventually start to feel it and believe in yourself. It's actually a true psychological principle. If you change your behavior, your thoughts and feelings will follow. We oftentimes think it's the opposite, but it's not. Fake it until you make it. It's a real thing. So that's my presentation, and I want to open up questions. I don't know if I covered everybody's topics that we talked about in the beginning, so now is a great time to do that. Yes?
What would you classify as a long email?
Sure. So a long email, the way that I've been mentored is that if you have to scroll up and down, it's too long. It should be when they open up the email, they're able to see the entire body of the content without having to scroll. Obviously, that's not a part of class rule. It really depends on what's going on. A good way to structure your email, like I said, is to get their attention in the beginning. Make it clear why you're writing them. Immediately communicate the value of what you're asking, or of what the email is asking in the beginning. Hey, listen, I'm writing because I'm really interested in the project that you just posted about on LinkedIn. I think I could really help you take the project to the next level. Here's how. Can we meet about this project? So the ask should come at the end, by the time they already really understand the value of what you're asking. Does that answer your question? I mean, sorry, I'll get to you in just 1 second. When I get a long email, I don't want to read it immediately. I think to my head, wow, this is going to take a lot of time and energy. I'll get back to it later. I do this every day, and I never get back to those emails. It's just too much of a drain on my time and energy. If I can't immediately figure out why it's important to me now, yes, Ron.
In networking events, sometimes I find it's hard if you walk in a few minutes late and everyone is already clustered. It looks like either they know each other or they're gutsier than I am. And if there's nobody standing alone, against the wall or whatever. How do you break into one of those groups and feel like that's okay?
That's a great question. I don't know. How would you do that?
Well, I'm asking you. You're the expert. I'm just a guy.
Something I would randomly try sometimes is I literally just stand in conversations range, just right there, just listening on the conversation. And that usually breaks their tension.
And what, then they invite you into the circle?
Yeah, you either continue talking about what they're talking about, or they're asked if you need something, and then use that as an opportunity to start talking.
Okay.
Yes.
One thing that I usually do would be, like, if they have people at a table that's giving out flyers, or they have the greeting people, you can go and talk to them, and eventually somebody will come by that table, and you could pick
That's
up
a great
conversation.
strategy. Yeah.
So going back to what you were talking about earlier, B, between interested versus interesting, when you find a group of people that are talking about something that you are interested in, it should be fairly easy for you to just step into that circle, listen for a few minutes, and ask a question. Because if you're genuinely interested, I mean, you're at a networking event, they want to network, they want to talk, they want to share. So if it's something you're interested in, it's perfectly acceptable to step in, listen, and ask a question. That is acceptable.
Yeah.
Every means of the word.
There was somebody over here. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. A little bit different than the networking thing, but kind of related to the way that you got that job.
Uh-huh.
You're very direct.
Which one?
It was the one where you said, I'll work for free for 3 days.
Yeah.
So the idea was like, you were pitching basically.
Yeah.
The way I got this job was I went to Pam and I was like, we could be doing more PR. Why aren't we doing this? We should do this. We should do this. And I had a list and I was like, let's have a meeting. I want to do this with you.
Right.
Not even trying to get a job, just like, we should be doing this.
Yeah.
And then she offered me, this position. So like, if there's somewhere you want to work, whether it's like a startup on campus or just anywhere, to be like, I want to add this value. I want to add this value. I want to add this value. Start with that and you'll be surprised what happens.
Absolutely, man.
That's how I have an intern for my startup. She just came to me and she was like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And then now she's like working with us. So
Absolutely. Because you got to think about it, right? Managers are too busy to hire people. And there's so many resumes for every job that's posted online that if you can get in someone's face, create value, give them a reason to hire you on the spot, immediately you are a person and those resumes are a piece of paper on the table. So remember that. Every single person with any kind of influence and importance is busy, overwhelmed. There's so much noise in their life. And if you can be the one voice of value and not noise, you can make an impact. A new one. Did you have something? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Besides entrepreneurial events, I mean, if you're trying to get into like different types of like groups with different expertise, for example, and network with those people, how would you begin to start that?
So what groups in specific?
Like, for example, like space technology, nuclear power,
Okay.
other kind of things,
Okay, interesting. So the speaker yesterday actually mentioned the value of trade shows. So if there's a specific vertical, a domain that you really want to work in or you have a startup in and you need connections there, trade shows are a great way to make connections. Also, sometimes, so I've been really interested in getting some custom clothing made. So I went on LinkedIn and looked for people who had fashion design in their profile in Orlando, and I started reaching out to them, and I actually made some connections that way. That's a great way to start too. Yeah.
I just remember now. You picked 3-day working for free.
Yeah.
Was it a little calculator or it's just randomly came?
Yeah, no, I mean, okay, so I got that idea because I had another buddy who did that successfully. So I just totally picked that idea up from him. But yeah, I think it is kind of calculated. 3 days is enough time where I'm not giving it a really huge amount of my time for free. It's just 3 days. And that's enough for them, I think, to kind of make a decision. And also 3 days, like the third day, is really when stuff starts happening. You see it in dating and you see it in business. The third time you meet with someone, they start to get a little uncomfortable because they know they have to make a decision about you. So I do think the third time is important. There was actually a guy who used to work here who said that when he was pitching businesses, he would sit in the office of big CEOs and the secretary would be like, hey, listen, they don't have time to see you. And he'd be like, that's okay, can I just sit here for the day? Just in case they have a few minutes. And they couldn't say no. And by the third day, he would always get a meeting because the CEO would be like, who's this joker that's been sitting here for 3 days? I gotta see him now. Now I'm really curious about what he has to say. So yes and no. I copied it from someone else, but I do think there's value in the third contact with editing. Yes.
Was that Ace?
Yeah.
There's also in Think and Grow Rich. It's this really, really famous old book. He says, go mail someone, tell them you'll work for 30 days for free. That's what Think and Grow Rich.
Napoleon by Napoleon.
Napoleon Hill. It's been in print for like 50, 60 years. Any book that's been in print more than 50 years, it's a good book.
Yeah, good to know. So I do want to talk a little bit now about this concept of working for free. So just like Phil's saying, I think it's really powerful because you take the guesswork out of hiring someone for your manager. So in the beginning, they see you as a free asset, as a volunteer. But if you use that job not to make copies and make coffee, but instead to create value, the next hire they make will obviously be you. You're already there. You already understand the business. You're already doing things to create value. I know so many people who've done just what Phil did, and it just works out. There's so many people who work here right now who used to be volunteers. So it's a powerful thing. But you got to be careful not to get too much bogged down by grunt work. So if they keep giving you coffee and copies to make, then you think about, okay, what's something I could do to create value, and just go do it. Go do it, bring it to your manager and say, look what I did. As long as it's not going to break anything, you know, and then they can improve it, and then they'll start to see, wow, this is somebody who's really an asset. I wanted to say one more thing about networking events. Sometimes on meetup.com, or for example, there's an app called Feather that's sometimes used by events to track attendance. You can see who's going to be there. If you can see who's going to be there, obviously look through that list and pick and choose the people who you think you can learn something from and who might be able to learn something from you, and seek them out during that event. For example, I used to go to this networking event called Central Florida Lady Bloggers. If any of you are lady bloggers and you're interested in this event, come see me afterwards. I'll show you how to get connected. Anyway, I was at this meetup one time, and a couple days before, I got this Facebook message from this random girl. Cute girl. She seemed really nice and really smart, telling me she had just moved down here. She's looking for new friends, and she would see me at this networking event that I had replied yes to on Facebook. And I was like, yeah, sounds great. So she got my attention at the meetup. We met in person. Fast forward a year and a half later, she's one of my best friends. She did it to make friends. You can do it to find jobs, you can do it to make friends. But if you know who's coming and you just do a little bit of research, look at their titles. Usually in the attendance list, it'll show you their title. So then you'll be able to take a small amount of people, search them on LinkedIn, see what they're up to. You got to be careful not to portray that you've learned so much online, because that makes people feel weird. But if you can do that, it can really help you keep the conversation going and really impress them with how much what you have to say is relevant to their lives. Anybody else? Yes.
One more thing, tag team networking. Did you ever tag team network?
What's that?
So it's daunting if you're not a really outgoing and fearless person. It's daunting to go into a room full of people, whether it's the groups we talked about earlier or whatever. Because you feel at least a little bit uncomfortable. Plus, you can only meet as many people as you can meet by yourself. I quite often will go to a networking event with somebody else, somebody that I know, somebody that I trust, somebody that I share information with, whatever. And then we'll work the room as a team. I'll kind of take a half, and he or she will take a half, and we'll spend about 30 minutes meeting as many people as we can, and then we'll go grab the other person and drag them over to our side of the room and start introducing them to all the people that we met, and then we'll go to the other side of the room and vice versa. And that can do a few different things. First of all, I think it doubles the number of people that you meet, and you can talk about who you met and you know, what value you think they have to both of you later on. Also, if you're a little bit hesitant to go off to a half of the room by yourself, choose somebody who's fearless. Go and just follow them around, because that person will know how to break into groups. That person will know or will be fearless about talking to people if you're there. As soon as they say, "Hey, how are you? My name is, you know, whatever. Oh, by the way, I want you to meet my friend so and so, or into this group or whatever." So there's a lot of value to be gotten out of tag team. Plus, you've got somebody there that you can lean on a little bit that you can just feel more comfortable with. I love that method of networking the best, frankly, because I just think it's a much easier way to do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I do want to speak to something that somebody brought up earlier. How do you connect to people that should be connected? So oftentimes I'll just use over email. Hey, Jeff, this person is working on X. Hey, this person, Jeff, is working on X. I think you guys could be, at the very least, great friends or potentially collaborators. I would love for you guys to meet up, and then I just kind of let them take it from there. But if you can connect that people that way, and they can provide value for each other, you automatically become more valuable because now you're a connector. So I try my best to do that as much as possible. But you can also arrange a meeting. It depends on what's appropriate, how much time you have, and what your goal is for connecting. Yes.
Initially, for me, when I go to networking events, it's mainly to build friendships with people in high positions. Now, how do if I wanted to have them sponsor me to do an event or something like that, how do I transition into that?
Absolutely. Good stuff. So how do you make a big ask of someone after just meeting them? So first of all, I would go research them, see what's going on, try to set up a meeting if you can. It must be on their time. Let me repeat that again. It must be on their time. Sometimes when I really want a meeting for someone that I know is really busy, everybody you want to meet with is really busy. I'll say, I'll meet you anywhere, anytime. I'll use that phrase. So you meet them on their time. That way they don't start to see you as a burden. You always want to keep encouraging the perception in other people that you are an investment and not a burden. So then I would go meet them. I would ask them something like, what's the biggest challenge in your business right now? I would try to get more of a pulse on what's going on with them. I would tell them about what you're doing and not make an ask. I would first tell them and ask for advice. There's a really great phrase that says, if you ask for money, you get advice. If you ask for advice, you get money. So I would start by just getting their advice on what you're doing, and then trying to follow up and doing something that can create value. Obviously, you're really young, they're probably older and more experienced. So you feel like there's nothing you can do to be of value of them? That's a lie. There's a ton of things you can do to create value. Like I said, at the small level, maybe that's sending them an article about something they're having trouble with. Maybe their sales team is having trouble maintaining sales through a down season, and you can find a great article about that and put it to them. On the bigger level, maybe you can make them a connection that can help them get their sales team together, for example. You got to kind of judge what's the ask you're making, how big is it, and then how big does your act of creating value need to be. And it takes a little bit of thinking to think to yourself, how can I create value for this highfalutin person? But I would at least try. And then I would build that relationship over a series of emails, if I could, phone calls, once in a while meeting. And oftentimes, if you do it correctly, they'll come out and make the ask for you. Looks like you need a sponsor. If you do it correctly, they'll come out and make the ask for you. If they don't ever make the ask, you can make it. And I would really lay out, this is what I'm asking. This is how big of a time, energy, money investment it will be. This is the value I think it will create. This is why it's important for you to do it. See what I'm saying? If you can create this perception that it's a symbiotic give and take, it makes it really hard for them to say no. But the thing to remember is that for anybody with any power or influence, people are always making demands of them, and the most valuable thing they have is not their money, it's their time. So if you're making a demand on their time, you don't want to be like all the other basics that are like, hey, do this for me, hey, do that for me, hey, come meet with me. You want to create value, be remarkable and be memorable, and be empathetic to their situation. I hope that answers your question. Anybody else? Yes.
In face-to-face meetings, you study psychology, so you're aware that there are endless amount of psychological
Right.
dynamics.
Yes.
And me, I'm deliberate about that.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I lose my train of thought because I'm like, my posture, you know,
Yeah.
looking eye contact and all mirroring them,
Right.
etc. And as well as the tonality side, being sincere but also a figure of authority, or valuable. And I have a hard time mastering that combination because I feel like I come off a bit more intense
Right.
because I'm really passionate,
Right.
and I feel like I can scare them away. And I guess my question is the right balance of sincerity and the right balance of intenseness that I know what I'm talking about, and you should hire me because
Right.
I'm the best.
Yeah. So I think that's a great point. I'm a student of this stuff. I just love it. In my free time, I'll read books about body language. So I empathize with it. And sometimes I'm in a conversation, I'm watching their body, and I can't listen, which is the point. So I do empathize with that. I would say err on the side of being yourself. That's always the most powerful thing. And your words sometimes don't have to demonstrate your effectiveness. It can be your track record. Hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what I've done in the past. Those things speak more volumes than saying I'm awesome, even though I believe that you are. That can help. Also, the best thing to do is to bring your energy level to theirs. So if somebody is like super intense, you could bring your most intense Eddie to that meeting, right? And they'll eat it up because they get it. But if somebody is really demure and has a really soft personality, you gotta tone it all the way down. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to relate to somebody. And when we meet somebody, what's the first thing we think? How much is this person like me? How much do I understand that? And if you can convince most people that you meet that you are like them, they will be more willing to help you.
Similar to what you said, Tony Robbins, he has a really good video about that on how to build rapport.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Oh, basically he's saying that people like people who are like them or who they would like to be like. So he said communication is like 7% verbal and 90% body language. So he said the best way to build rapport with somebody is not only through speaking, but body language, like you said, mirroring. So if they give you a fishy handshake, then don't give them a strong handshake because you hurt their hand. You're like, why is this guy so aggressive?
Right.
So if they give you a fishy handshake, you give them a fishy handshake.
Yeah.
If they speak loud like this and you're speaking soft, then in their head it's like, all right, this guy is he don't feel confident. But if they speak loud, you can speak loud with them and meet them where they at. And something inside them will be like, I don't know what it is about this guy, but
there you go.
He's really similar to me. We have something in common, but he won't know that you're just learning what he said. So he crosses legs, you can cross your legs.
Right.
But don't just be like this with them the whole time.
Right.
But
You gotta wait like
into
10. You gotta wait like 5 seconds.
Yeah, and that's how I met really. I met the vice president of BB&T Bank. I ended up having coffee with him because when he shook my hand, he held my elbow, so I was holding his elbow. And then each time he had a drink in his hand, whenever he would switch, I would switch, and I married, and we kicked off, and it was really good.
That's good. So they're talking. These two mentioned about mirroring. It's just when you somebody leans back, you lean back too. If you're gonna do that deliberately, you gotta work really hard to make sure that it looks sincere.
Yeah.
If people pick up on it, you can't talk about any of this stuff publicly. People get really weirded out about it. So the best thing is when somebody is mirroring you. You start out mirroring them, and then you can switch them to mirroring you. You got it. Here's another thing on that subject. When somebody does this, it usually means you're losing. So you want to help them uncross their hands Sometimes you can do this by handing them a pen. Sometimes you can do it by asking them for something. But just so you know, this is usually an indicator that you're going to change something in your conversation style. When people have open body language, you got.
And sometimes they're just cold.
I do want to mention something I said in the first time I gave this presentation, but I didn't mention it this time. Your tonality when you're talking, when you go up at the end of your sentences, it makes you seem a little insecure and like you don't know what you're talking about and you need other people's validation. But if you go down at the end of your sentences, it makes you seem more friendly. See that? Just something to think about. It can get really easy. It's really easy to become obsessed with these kinds of things. So I would caution you against it, becoming obsessed. But these are all good things to know. At the end of the day, be yourself. Always think about how you can help and create value for someone else, and they'll be golden. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, SHakirra, for coming from that computer to the front. I appreciate it. If you guys want one-on-one free coaching to learn how to network, how to launch your startup, please see SHakirra in the front, and she will be able to schedule an appointment for you. If you want to sign up for a newsletter to hear about more events just like this, please let me know, and I'll make sure you're on the newsletter. But before you guys leave, we have a tradition. We play some cool hipster music, we go to the front, and we take an Instagram picture. So please head to the front. John, you take over.
Let me see.
All right, guys, you can just get as
How you
close as
doing,
possible.
So Monday's best for you, right?
Yeah.
Anybody, last call for picture. Yeah,
Nice
that's it.
shoes.
All right. One serious photo, and then do one we got eye black.
Hampton Brothers. That's so hipster.
All right, one, there we go. 2, 3. Nice, all right, you get one wax. You guys have to train for me, please? Yes, weird, goofy, and photo. Awesome, 1, 2, 3. Like it, all right.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I changed the quote. I've been using earlier section.
This is obviously. I know that.
Networking events. For the Space Institute, hold on twice a month.
I can give you what I need. That way, you don't need to. Yeah. Thank you. Good luck. What is it? What's the class?
I'm not doing 6, 7.
One day it's
Cheers. Gotta make a phone call. I'll be back.
Hey, you like the website? CSS Office? Yeah.
Four chairs.